So what is getting quality sleep and why is it so important? Well, first of all, getting quality sleep simply means to get enough sleep without any disruptions in a way that allows the body to fully regenerate and repair itself. In other words, in a way that provides adequate rest for both the body and the mind. So why is sleep so important? Well, if you think that poor sleep only results in feeling fatigued, then think again. Poor sleep takes its toll on your work, on your relationships, and everything else in your life. Why? Well, it's because being short asleep doesn't give the body enough time to repair and regenerate, which, according to science, affects your health in numerous ways, including an increased risk of stress, anxiety, depression, behavior problems, memory issues, obesity, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, heart attack, and cancer. It can also lead to decreased judgment, where studies have shown that only getting 5 hours of sleep is the same as driving when you are drunk. This means that you also lose your ability to self-regulate and self-control. And as such, you are much more vulnerable to things and more inclined to make negative lifestyle choices, such as emotional eating. Yet, despite the sheer importance of sleep, very few of us are actually sleeping enough. In fact, did you know that most of us are getting, on average, 1.5 hours less sleep per night than we did in the past? That's crazy. This means that many of us fit the official medical definition of a chronic insomnia, which is where you have trouble falling asleep, staying awake, and or waking up too early. The problem has become so common that sleep experts have even hailed it the global fatigue crisis, or GFC. And whilst an hour or so less sleep may not sound like a lot, by the end of the week, it can easily equate to more than a full night's less sleep. That's the equivalent of going on a full night bender. And whilst I used to do that sometimes in my late teens, I don't know about you, but I sure as hell couldn't do it now without it affecting me. Yet today, regardless of our age, most of us are. It's no wonder so many of us are frequently tired and lack energy. So, how much sleep do we need? The best way to determine how much sleep you need is to simply listen to your body. If you're tired, then I'm guessing that you need more sleep. But on average, adults need 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep per night. However, this is dependent upon what stage of life you're at. And so, while getting enough sleep is important, what's even more important is that you get quality sleep. It's no good sleeping 8 hours if you wake up every hour. So how do we get a better night's sleep? Well, there are many great tips for sleeping, which I can share with you. So I'll just run through a few of the best ones of these now. First, it's really important to give yourself permission to sleep. And whilst it may sound silly, it can often be difficult for us to do in a world where busyness has almost become a badge of honor. I get that we are all busy. We all are. But sleep is not a nice to have, but rather a need to have. Okay? The reality is that we find it so difficult to get into shape and be healthy, not so much because we are not willing to work out or eat the right foods, but rather largely because we are not willing to sleep enough to allow our bodies to repair and become healthier and stronger. So please give yourself permission to get adequate sleep. Even if you're only halfway through your to-do list, trust me, it will still be there tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that too. Next, you need to be intentional about it. And one way of doing this is to set an evening alarm. If you need to, wake up for work, at 6 a.m. for example, then you want to set your alarm on your phone in the evening to remind yourself to go to sleep, probably about 8:30 or 9 p.m., just to ensure that you get the required amount of sleep. This is a really great way to get into the habit of going to bed when you should during the week. The next tip is to exercise often. When you exercise, your brain releases chemicals called beta endorphins, which improve your mood and promote feelings of calmness. Okay, so this combined with the fact that your muscles get a great workout and need rest to repair makes it so much easier for you to fall asleep at night. However, I will say that while strenuous exercise is great, try to avoid it a few hours before going to bed, as it can actually cause you to become more alert when you should be sleeping. Also, regular stretching, okay, so all your different kind of stretches, helps to release tension from your muscles, enabling you to relax and fall asleep more easily when you're in bed. Think of it like your mobile phone plan. Every day that you don't use your data, it rolls over to the next day, the next day, next day, next day, next month, or whatever. It's the same with tension in your body. Every day that you don't stretch, tension builds up in your body and makes it not only harder for you to function, but also to sleep too. So make sure that you stretch. Yoga and massage are also good here. In order to feel the full benefits of exercise and stretching on both the duration and quality of your sleep, however, you will need to do these daily for a week, okay? Another very important thing to do in order to get quality sleep is to live true. Look, excess stress and living with anxiety makes sleeping difficult at the best of times. Regular exercise, meditation, and deep breathing exercises may all help to reduce your stress and anxiety levels, often by way of distraction or management of stress. However, 90% of stress in life comes from not living in alignment with ourselves and from doing things we don't really want to do. And so by far the best way to reduce your stress levels in life is simply to live true to yourself. How do you do that? Well, you do it by living in the present moment, by listening to your gut, by putting yourself first, by taking responsibility for yourself, by being the best version of yourself, by writing your own story in life, by being the bigger person, by having your say, by being yourself, and much more. Next, look at establishing a winding down ritual. I say that because in order to prepare our bodies and brains for sleep, we need to give ourselves time before bed to unwind and relax. Too often, we're rushing around or checking emails right up until we collapse into bed, keeping ourselves energized and alert. So it should be no surprise if we find it difficult to get to sleep. It's because we're still alert. So in the 1 to 2 hours before bedtime, try to free your mind off distracting or troublesome thoughts and engage in relaxing, enjoyable activities like reading, listening to gentle music or anything else that helps you relax and unwind. If you still find that your mind is racing as you hit that pillow at night, then basic meditation techniques such as mindfulness and slow rhythmic conscious breathing, as well as progressive relaxation and visualization meditation can all help. It's also really important to refrain from eating before bed. When we eat too late at night, the muscles that digest and metabolize our food have to keep working when they should be resting. This can delay your ability to fall asleep and can prevent you from getting the deep, restful stage of sleep you need to feel refreshed the next day. Eating too late at night also raises your risk of developing many chronic diseases, including things like obesity and cancer. So aim to stop eating about 3 hours before you go to bed. If you find it's difficult to do, then make sure that you eat breakfast within 1 to 2 hours of waking up in the morning. Also, we often confuse hunger with tiredness, so those late night cravings may just be your body telling you that it needs some rest. Going to bed on time can also help. If you find that you're still hungry after dinner or a rumbling stomach is just keeping you awake at night, it's okay to have a small snack on occasion. And that snack can be something with protein and fiber, such as the Greek yogurt or fruit. Bananas are especially good. a bit of cheese, veggies with hummus, a small handful of almonds, and oatmeal. Also, be mindful that while sugary foods and caffeine may satisfy your cravings, they are very likely to prevent you from getting a good night's sleep, so try to avoid those ones. Look, at the end of the day, there are so many other ways to improve the quality of your sleep. Just doing one of these things might improve your sleep, but doing all of them will definitely make a huge difference, I promise. So, on average, how many hours of quality sleep do you get per day?
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to learn more about the other essential attributes of staying in your best shape. And until next time, watch what you chew, do what you need to do, and always live true.